Welcome back to the podcast, Stuff No One Told Us About Weight Loss. My name is Eloise and I'm here with Aaron. And today we're talking about journaling.
And how we've discovered journaling, and then why we also think it's so important for anyone, especially if you're doing a weight loss journey, but anyone in general, really. And we're going to sort of talk about our own experiences as to how we've sort of come to that conclusion.
Exactly. Journaling is something that I used to hate with a passion. And it's something that I've come to love and something that's really changed my life, because I've learnt really that journaling is A, an essential key to weight loss, but B, it's also an essential part of self-care. I think that a lot of people have this idea of what self-care is. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how we use journaling as part of our self-care practice.
Yeah, and I think I was much the same with journaling. I really didn't want to do it initially in the beginning because I thought I had perceptions that journaling was, the whole Dear Diary and you write out your whole life story in there. But that's a tiny, tiny element of a different style of journaling. There's so many different styles of doing it and ways of doing it. And that's just one tiny, tiny little part. And I think a lot of people jump to extremes like that when they think about it. But at the end of the day, what journaling really helps you do is manage what's going on in your head, managing your thoughts.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times, and we've spoken about this on a previous podcast, it can kind of feel like there's a bit of a storm going on. If you imagine like a hurricane going around and around and around, and those are your thoughts. Sometimes it's very easy to get swept up in the storm and just get carried away, and then we come to these radical conclusions, and we're either more confused, we're feeling doubt, we're feeling really shitty with ourselves, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And I think journaling is a good way of stepping into the eye of the storm, where things are calm, and you can take an objective look at what's really going on.
Yeah, it's a really important piece of noticing what are your current thoughts and what are your current habits and behaviors. And then also, how can I start to improve those? And when you journal, you can work through problems, and it's almost like problem solving for your thinking.
Yeah.
And it can really help you do that. And as Aaron said before, there's so many different styles of journaling. Don't put yourself into this box of thinking that journaling is one type of thing.
Yeah.
There are so many different ways that you can journal. And when I personally talk about journaling, I'm talking about any kind of journaling. So any time you're putting pen to paper, I call that journaling. So I don't separate journaling and planning. I call them the same thing. Because journaling to me is any time I'm writing, no matter what kind of writing that is. If it's planning, if it's reflection, if it's setting goals, if it's just writing down my food for the day, all of that to me is called journaling.
Yeah.
So that's just a note for when you're listening. When I'm talking about journaling, I mean anything.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that I've noticed is, and in general why we use journaling so much now, is it really helps you get honest with what's really going on inside your head. Because quite often we sort of fall into the trap of, if something doesn't feel good or we think a certain way, we tend to just push it away. And it just eventually rears its ugly head, and then we find things are much harder. Journaling allows you to bring that stuff out and actually put it in front of you in paper. And I feel like there's power in that, because it allows you to take what's in your head and put it on paper and then objectively look at it and go, am I being truly honest here, or am I trying to hold back and sweep it under the rug kind of thing?
Yeah. For me in particular, I find that in the past, I lived a lot on autopilot mode, survival mode, that kind of unconscious, just going through the motions every day. And what happens when we're in that state is that we are avoiding the reality of our situation. We're numbing with things like social media or shopping or food, and we're just trying to get by. And when that's happening, we aren't being honest with ourselves about how we're feeling and about the power we actually have over our lives and over our day. And what journaling has done for me in particular is bring that awareness to me on what is actually going on in my life. How am I actually showing up for myself? What is the truth of the situation right now? What am I trying to avoid? All of that stuff. And even more important than that is it's getting me into the present moment. And when we're on autopilot mode or survival mode, we're out of the present moment. We're just operating in our subconscious brain. We're not in our conscious brain, which is essentially us being in that present moment. And that's where we can actually make changes for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we can actually feel good. Because if you can't get into that present moment, you're going to either be focused on worrying about the future or worrying about the past.
That's right.
And you can't be happy in either of those places.
It gives you that freedom to just make a choice.
Exactly.
You know, in the moment, you can decide, you know, what am I thinking right now, and what do I choose to do? How do I choose to interpret this? You know, as humans, we've got the ability to, in between a stimulus, so something happens in the external world, we have the ability to choose how we react to that. And that's what separates us from many other animals, is we can choose whether we want to either fight, run, freeze. There's all these different things that we can do.
Or respond logically.
Yeah. Or we can switch over and go, well, hang on a minute, this is a problem that's here. I can then solve it.
Yeah.
The only problem is sometimes we get so swept up in that storm that we forget about that and we just react to the situation. You know, we come back with a knee-jerk reaction, and a lot of times that's not necessarily the best thing for us.
I mean, and that's a big place where journaling helped me, is starting to become less reactive. I don't think there's a world where you're never reactive. But what it does is, after you've written something down over and over again, you start to then remember it during the day, and it starts to pop into your brain at times when you need it. And that's sort of the magic of it, is like once you repeat so many times, then it starts to work. Like, I've heard a lot of people talk about journaling before, and I think that sometimes they have unrealistic expectations of like, oh, well, if I just start writing stuff down after a week, my life will magically improve.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, it takes time. And if you just trust the process and you keep doing the writing, you keep bringing your awareness, you keep being honest with yourself, you keep writing down what you want for yourself and who's the type of person you want to be, eventually you do start to act in accordance with that.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it happens, but it really does happen. And that's why it's such a great thing for weight loss, because we can really start to design the life we want. We can start to bring awareness to our habits that we don't want to keep anymore. And we can start to look at, well, what habits do we want to build and how can we start to build those?
So journaling is a really good tool to use if you're someone who gets overwhelmed quite easily.
Like me.
Eloise tends to get overwhelmed quite easy with a lot of things. But no, we all at some point do get overwhelmed. And I feel like journaling is really good because our thoughts go crazy when we're overwhelmed. And that's all overwhelm is we've been sucked into the storm a little bit and we're kind of trying to work out what's going on. Journaling's good because it allows you to get your thoughts down on paper and sit back and objectively look at it and then realize, well, hang on a minute, this is actually not as bad as what it seems when it's in my head going around, when that storm's going like crazy.
Yeah, the way this shows up for me is definitely when I'm sitting there and I have a lot of things to do, or if I'm worried that I'm not doing whatever task I'm doing well enough, I tend to get into that state of overwhelm. And what does help is when I write all the things I have to do down, or I write down what I'm worried about, it becomes less scary.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of, like, when it's in your head, it's like you're in this black hole and you can't see anything. And then essentially what you're doing by writing it down is you're just shining a light on the thoughts. And now you can see what's there and it's no longer scary anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, here's what's happening. This now feels doable versus this feels impossible when it's just swimming around in your head.
Yeah. It's much easier to solve a problem when you can see it.
Yes.
When you can't see it and no one else can see it, it's very hard to solve a problem. But,
well, because we also start to attach all these crazy emotions and worries and fears when it's in our head. But when it's on paper, all of a sudden, like, our logic like flicks on or something and we remove some of that crazy like emotion.
Yeah. If you think about it like on a really simple level, if you've ever had to try and do maths, like a complicated maths equation in your head before, what do we instinctively do? We try and write it down.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for us to then do and to work through that same problem if we write it down. Whereas if we're just trying to do it in our heads, sometimes it's a little bit difficult and
it gets very disorganized.
Exactly. That's exactly the same way with our thoughts. And the more that you can think about it like that, the more open you're going to be and the more you're going to see the power of actually what it will do for you in the long run.
Yeah. Now, when I talk about journaling being self-care, I think a lot of people struggle with that idea because a lot of people think that self-care means bubble baths or going to get a manicure and pedicure or facials, spa days. And we tend to think that self-care is these like grand gestures to ourselves. But the truth is that self-care is often just taking 5 minutes for yourself to be with your thoughts and to plan your day.
Yeah.
To plan your food, to plan how you're going to show up for the day.
It's just like a check-in with yourself.
Yes.
Really, at the end of the day, it's like how you would check in with anyone else. You're doing that for yourself.
It's really the best gift that you could ever give yourself. Just that 5 minutes, 10 minutes with yourself and really just deciding who you're going to be today. Because like, what else is self-care? Self-care is really just you doing something for yourself to make your life better. And that is what journaling is. Journaling is essentially giving yourself a chance to make choices for yourself and show up in a better way during the day. A gratitude practice is something that I include as part of my journaling and something we get our clients doing as well. And the crazy thing is, so many of our clients will say that they actually start to feel happier during their day from simply writing down in the morning a few things that they're grateful for.
Well, you're essentially teaching your brain a new skill. You're teaching it to start to look for things that make you feel good, that you appreciate. You're teaching it to focus on the positive rather than the negative.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that whole thing of when we're in autopilot, survival mode, we're not sitting there looking around to find what are the amazing things in my life. We're just going through the motions. We're just avoiding life.
Yeah,
Whereas
or
you start to experience life.
Or we react to the day. So for a lot of people, and this is what we get a lot of our clients to do, is, and when we first talk to them, like, all right, tell me how you sort of start your day. And typically most people will get up and the first thing that they'll do is they check their phone.
Yeah.
And it's either they're checking emails or they're checking stuff with work, messages from people. And so they
Social
start
media,
the day,
news.
they start the day reacting to the day. So they focus on all these things that are outside of their control and they let that dictate what the narrative is that's going on in their head.
Yeah.
Which is why things feel so tough, things feel so overwhelming, is because they're teaching their brain to focus on that stuff rather than going, no, all right, I'm going to find 3 things that, I'm grateful for today, and teach your brain to start off with, you are in control. You're looking for the things that make you feel good and that make you feel empowered to keep going. And even when things get tough, just keep looking for ways that you can do it.
Yeah. One of the really important things that we have in our journal is actually planning for what might throw me off today. And that's another thing that's very similar. It's teaching your brain the skill to deal with shit that comes up.
Yeah.
Instead of freaking out about it and letting it throw you off. If you've journaled in the morning, okay, I have this super busy day, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, and here's exactly how I'm going to deal with it, then when it happens, you're 100% ready to go.
Yeah, it's a lot less scary.
You expect it. You know what's going on. You're like, yep, these are the thoughts that I'm going to think in this moment. These are the actions maybe that I'm going to take to reduce some of the stress. Here's what I'm going to eat at this time. Here's what I'm going to remind myself of. And you're able to deal with those things that would have thrown you off previously. Yeah. And now you're just rolling with it because of that journaling in the morning. It's such an important part of the day.
It's such a simple thing, but it makes such a difference. And this is the sort of trend that we find is a lot of people who are really struggling to either stick to the plan or they're struggling to lose weight, they find themselves quite overwhelmed all the time. Like they're always overwhelmed. They're stressed about different things. They seem from the outside not to have a handle on things. Whereas when you take a look at someone who may make it look easy, or they always seem to just be able to maintain, they've got a level of order about themselves and about their schedule. Very few things tend to throw them off. And that's because that's just simply, they're not better than you. They're not different people.
They don't go through life with nothing happening around them. They experience the same life.
Yeah. They've just taught themselves how to handle those situations.
Exactly.
And the good news is you can do that too.
100%. That was a big lesson that I learned myself, is that power of the journaling. And when you do start trusting the process, it took me so long to learn to trust the journaling. But when you do, you will start to feel that power of it.
Yeah.
In our intentional weight loss workshop, which is the program that we run for our clients who want to lose weight, we have our own custom journal. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see, but I'm showing it here.
If you're watching the video, you can obviously see this.
This is our intentional journal. This is a journal that we have custom made and sent out to our intentional weight loss workshop clients. And this journal is one of my favorite parts of the program. It's something that I personally use every single day. And it's something that has actually changed my life. And our clients also love the journal too. And we've gotten some amazing feedback. And basically, with this journal, we do a lot of the things that we've discussed already. But the big part of this journal is our morning and nighttime journal practice. So in the morning, we get our clients planning out their day in terms of what am I going to eat today, what things might come up for the day, and what exercise am I going to do, what things can I do today to show up for myself and my goal, and then what am I grateful for, and then also what do I like about myself today. And again, as I said before, it's about that repetition of if you just say the same thing every day, that's okay.
Yeah.
Eventually you start to believe it.
It's just doing the reps. It's exactly the same as when you're training in the gym. You have to do the reps to get the results.
Exactly.
This is just the mental reps.
Yeah, and so our journal is really a mixture of planning for the day and also then planning our thoughts and the way we're going to show up. So it's a bit of a mixture there. And then at the end of the day, we have our nighttime journal or our evening journal. And that's where we just reflect on the day and we reflect on how did I show up today? What did I eat today? What were the facts of what I ate today? Was that aligned with what I planned for myself? And if it wasn't, why is that?
Yeah.
We really encourage our clients to get curious with themselves because that's something that's really helped us as well. When you lose the self-judgment and instead you start questioning, well, why didn't I follow my plan? Why didn't I listen to my hunger signals today? Why did things go down the drain today?
Yeah.
You start to then find patterns in your life that you can then plan for next time and ways that you can improve so that then tomorrow you're going into the day with a little bit extra knowledge that you didn't have the day before about yourself and how you deal with your life.
It really gives you a sense of control over yourself and what's really going on because at the end of the day, this is giving you a bit more structure. If we're planning out the day ahead and then at the end of the day we're reviewing what we did, we're starting to get a lot more granular with our actions, our thought patterns, what we're saying we're going to do versus what we actually do.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful because that puts you back in the driver's seat for your own results. If you can start to recognize your own patterns, you're more likely to be able to change those patterns.
Yeah.
If you get some guidance from a coach and be able to change them for the better. This is a huge, huge step in the success of the program that we do run. And as Eloise said, a lot of our clients have come back with really, really good feedback about just that simple practice of journaling.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about the nighttime journal is at the end of the day, we get you to look at what was I proud of today?
Yeah.
What were 3 things I was proud of? And that is a really, really important thing because often at the end of a bad day, we will sit there and just be like, well, that day was a waste.
Yeah.
That was just a waste of time. How shit was that day? Nothing went well. But if we sit there and we think about, okay, well, what are 3 things that I was proud of? 3 small things. What can I find?
Yeah.
And that's about getting you to recognize those small wins. No matter what is happening in your life, there's always little wins, but most of us don't take the time to notice them. And so we think that we're doing everything terribly. But the truth is we're actually probably making progress. We're just not stopping to notice it.
Yeah, and a small win could be something like thinking about something a little bit differently.
Certainly.
If you have, let's just say, for example, let's say you have a bit of a hang up with getting on the scale. If getting on the scale makes you feel nervous, if you feel really defeated after you step on it and see the result, if all of a sudden you're journaling about this every single day and then you start to change the way you think about it, that's huge.
Massive.
A lot of people brush that off as something just small and they're like, oh, I didn't get nervous when I stood on the scale. That's huge. Recognize that is a massive turning point because if you hadn't have done this work, you wouldn't be at this point. You'd probably be still getting on the scale and hating it.
Well, exactly. And think about all the other people out there who aren't doing that work, who are stepping on the scale and feeling defeated and hopeless. And here you are doing the work for yourself and being able to work through that and coach yourself through that, which is another point to make on journaling, is it does help you learn how to coach yourself. As coaches, we don't want our clients to rely on us, because we talk about our program is designed to work for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You're not going to have access to us for the rest of your life. And so what we want is for our clients to be able to work through these things on their own.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we work with a lot of people to do, is like, when things do go wrong, when you're feeling defeated, how do you then pick yourself up and keep going and keep building that life that you want, even without someone there telling you what to do?
That's right.
That's the power of journaling, I feel.
And once you can get to a point like that where you can sort of self-correct, go back and go, all right, things aren't working out how they should be or how I want them to. What am I doing to cause this? And when you take that responsibility for yourself and you've got all the skills of implementing this stuff day after day after day, you're in a very, very powerful position then.
There's no way to lose.
Exactly.
Because you're going to feel like you know exactly how to get back on. It's a client of mine said this to me the other day. She was feeling a little bit defeated after stepping on the scale, but she said to me, I actually feel confident I'm going to get back on track now. And to me, that is like the most amazing thing to hear.
Yeah.
As a coach, that is just like the biggest moment, because it's like she now has that confidence to move forward and to course correct herself. How amazing is that?
No, it's pretty. It's awesome when we as coaches get that feedback from clients. It sort of shows us that they're really starting to change as people, and that's success in our books. When we can see that, that's a successful win.
Yeah.
When we get clients, like, if they've been doing this journaling practice, if they look back 12 months ago at the kind of person they were when they started doing it compared to where they're at now, the difference is huge.
Oh, it's crazy.
There are so many different things, and they a lot of the times brush over it, but when we do say, like, hey, go back and look at your entries or what you were doing, say, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, like, most of them are amazed at the kind of growth that they've got, not just in terms of weight loss, but in terms of their whole life. Like, they're actually enjoying things a lot more. They're seeing things through a different lens, which is the biggest win that they can get.
Yeah. And I really do believe that is a combination of coaching and journaling. And the journaling is such a massive piece, and that's why we really wanted to speak to you guys about journaling today, because it's something we're really passionate about. We were both people who started off being very skeptical about journaling and who gradually allowed ourselves to try it, and then it completely changed our lives and really formed our entire business.
That's right.
So
it's funny that
it's crazy. It's
something
crazy.
we were both resistant to is now
Give
one
journaling
of
a chance.
the biggest things that we use.
Yeah.
So guys, we hope you definitely got some value out of this. As you've probably heard, we're very big proponents of journaling, obviously. We encourage you, if you have listened to this, if you're not already journaling, to start journaling in some small way. Like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to sit there and write a whole page. Just write down 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day. We
sometimes post journal prompts on Instagram as well. And I do on my personal page too. So if you do want some journal prompts, check out our Instagram, or even just Google journaling prompts for self-care or something like that, and you will find prompts that can just get you started.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for listening, and we will both see you next time.